Oh, absolutely. He has the look of that kind of guy. I mean, you have to have some confidence if you're going to go out there and be an NFL quarterback for sure. And listening to Sanchez talk after practice today, you definitely got the feeling that he welcomes the company and he believes he can win it. I think it's going to be the kind of deal where if Sanchez is markedly better, then he does have a very good chance to win it, and he will win it. But if there's a tie or it's close, it has to go to Bradford for a couple of reasons. First off, they gave up a lot to get Bradford, and secondly, they only have him for a year under contract. So unless they do a contract extension before that, they have to find out this season what they have there and decide what they're going to do in the long term. So they need to see Bradford play and need to make some pretty expensive decisions right there. So that all kind of goes on the Bradford side of the ledger.
Yeah, and, one thing with Sanchez, I guess it wasn't discussed a whole heck of a lot. We talked a lot about him not throwing the ball or taking shots down the field. Was that a product of him, not being completely healthy with that shoulder problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, basically, he kind of said today that he was watching game film from last year, and then watching it, and now that he knows the offense better, and, he's been doing things with his arm feeling better, he's watching the play develop and going, where's the ball? And, because the guy that's throwing the ball was Sanchez, but his shoulder wasn't 100% ready, and so the ball will come fluttering out when it's supposed to come out with some zip on it. He said he really feels like he has more zip on the ball now, and those deep shots that he was hesitant to take last year, he feels like he's ready to take them now. So, if he's with Sanchez, that, it's really for both guys, in Bradford and Sanchez. You have two guys who are coming out of college, top 5 draft picks. These are guys people are expected to be franchise quarterbacks. So that's absolutely two guys, and then you have Tebow, who's another first-round quarterback. That's 3 guys that teams drafted expected them to be franchise quarterbacks. So out of the 3 of them, all Kelly really needs to do is get one of them to be a franchise quarterback, and he comes out the winner.
Sam Bradford talked today, so did Tebow. Both of them sound like they are enjoying the opportunity to be in this type of offense. Sam said, I think the offense fits my style of game, making quick decisions, and I think that's what gets overlooked a lot of times. Everybody thinks, well, it's a running quarterback or whatever it may be that Chip Kelly's looking for, but the quick decision-making is really the hallmark of this offense. Did you look at Sam Bradford as a guy who thinks that this is the perfect spot for him?
Yeah, I really got that sense. And talking to him, he wouldn't answer any questions that had to do with his contract situation, whether he wanted one, would entertain having one now, or wanted to wait. He basically said it's not up to him. They haven't offered him anything, and so he's just trying to learn the offense and do what he's supposed to do on the field. So, ideally for him, this is a guy that's made over $60 million, in 5 years since he became the number 1 pick of the draft. So this is not a guy who's got to make any, big, let money dictate to him. He can do whatever he wants. He's financially secure. He looks excited just to run this offense. I mean, he ran a spread offense in Oklahoma. He had DeMarco Murray in the backfield, so he's going to be comfortable with that stuff. It's familiar. The decision-making, the quick throws, and the accurate throws. That's the other thing. Bradford's a really accurate guy, and accuracy is hugely important to this offense. So he seems like he should fit. We won't know, until we see him in live action, if the knee injuries and the getting hit and the things he went through in St. Louis have damaged that player and to the point where he can't be that player again. We don't know that yet. But if the potential, if he reaches the potential that we know he has, he should be a pretty good quarterback.
Phil, what's the secondary competition shaping up to look like here? Because they went out and got Maxwell, they drafted a guy, they brought in Walter Thurman, they have Earl Wolfpack, but I don't know that there's a definitive guy that anybody's excited about. Maybe Rowe being the draft choice, but how do you break down that secondary battle?
Yeah, it's been really interesting all along because, when free agency began, they made a lot of splashes, obviously. But one of the ones they tried to make and were unable to make was to try to sign Devin McCourty, the safety from New England. Now, if they'd gotten him with Maxwell, you would have had a major overhaul of the secondary with 2 star caliber players to fill those holes that they opened up by getting rid of the guys that they let go. So since then, it's all been a lot of question marks. What are they going to do with safety? They don't really seem to have a guy that's definitely the guy. And Kelly said Earl Wolf will compete for it, but Wolf's knee is still recovering. He's not ready to go yet. Walter Thurman, we all thought was going to maybe be a slot corner, a nickel corner guy. Basically, a couple weeks ago, they asked him, would you like to try working at safety? And Thurman said yes. So he's actually playing safety right now. He's not the biggest guy in the world. But, the thing about Rowe, when he got here, I looked at the guy, and he looks like a cornerback. And bigger, taller, leaner cornerbacks are kind of the trend right now. And Eric Rowe looks like that kind of player. He looks like the kind of guy that they want on the outside. So he can play safety. Most of his college experience is at safety. But his physical, his physical presence and his demeanor, he looks like a quarterback. So Kelly has talked a lot about how important these measurables are to his evaluating players. He wants certain guys a certain size and a certain height and weight and everything. So Rowe looks like a cornerback to me. It looks like Thurman, Earl Wolf, maybe Jalen Watkins will all be competing for the safety spot. And then Rowe and Nolan Carroll suddenly emerge as a guy who's competing for the outside cornerback spot. So they know half the secondary. The other half is going to be determined by a long process here through all of OTAs and all of training camp and the whole preseason. So at least they have some talented people, kind of in the mix. And that is what Kelly basically said. We have better guys in the mix right now than we had the last couple of years, and that's all you can really ask for.
Phil Sheridan, ESPN.com's NFL Nation with the Eagles. Obviously, he was asked about McCoy's comments a couple of weeks ago, alleging that Chip Kelly favored white players over black, and we had talked about this when it happened, Phil, but were you okay, or were you happy to hear him address this, and were you comfortable with the way that he did address it?
Yeah, I thought he handled it really well. I mean, when McCoy made those comments, they were to ESPN, the magazine. Actually, Mike Rodak, the NFL Nation reporter who covers the Bills, did the question and answer session with McCoy. So I had seen the quotes, and I was actually trying to get Kelly to respond before they were published. But the Eagles decided they didn't think there was anything to gain by, talking about this stuff and addressing it. But my experience in all this stuff, if you don't address it, at some point it's going to come up again. And it's come up again and again now this offseason. And I really think Kelly needed to say something. I think it was only going to keep happening if he didn't. And, the way he basically said it was, hey, I respect LeSean, but I think he's wrong about this. This is not what is in my heart. This is not how I do things. We look at a lot of things with players when we decide to, acquire them or retain them. Race has never been one of those things, and it isn't now. And, it was pretty straightforward, and it was pretty clear what he said and how he meant it. And, there's no way you can ever say anybody isn't, and anything is, any kind of a bigot. You don't know what anybody else is thinking and feeling. Sometimes you don't even know yourself what you're thinking. But you can never say for sure what anybody else is. But I thought Kelly handled that as well as he could, given all the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder if the Riley Cooper thing is the lingering, thing that had McCoy say what he did, or is there instances of ways that Kelly talks to the players in a manner behind closed doors that maybe we're not privy to, that he's insinuating that no one would know, but where else he would get these, allegations from? That is very puzzling.
Yeah, it's weird because, if you have a confrontation with somebody and it's about whatever issue, if it's, in this case, it's a workplace issue, or if Chip Kelly calls you in his office and he's telling you that you're traded or you're cut or they want to give you a pay cut or whatever it is, if you're a black player and he's a white coach, you may feel that that's racially motivated. I mean, because it's in the mix. If it's a white player, if it's Todd Herman's getting a call from Chip Kelly, well, Herman's going to think a bunch of things. He doesn't like me. He doesn't like the way I play. He doesn't like that I'm an Andy Reid guy, whatever. But the race element isn't in the mix. It's not something he's going to think of. So, I don't think McCoy made it up. I mean, there had been stuff talked about, the Stephen A. Smith thing earlier this year. The whole idea that Chip Kelly got rid of Deshaun Jackson but re-signed Riley Cooper, that looks, if you want to spin that as a racial thing, that looks like it would be a compelling argument. But they have signed a lot of other players who aren't white, and they've paid a lot. Byron Maxwell's African-American cornerback. He's got a 6-year deal worth $63 million. I mean, that's the most, they're paying any of these guys. If it's about race, where's all the white cornerbacks? There just aren't any. So I don't think that Shady made it up, or Shady even thinks of it as that, controversial thing to say. The way he worded it, it didn't seem like he thought he was making that big of a deal out of it. But unfortunately, in America, it's a hot button issue. It always is. It's hard to prove the negative if you don't, no one knows what anybody else is really thinking inside. So it's a tough topic to discuss. But I thought by at least addressing it today and handling it really well, that Chip at least gave us something to kind of go on besides what Shady said.
He's Phil Sheridan, ESPN.com's NFL Nation, as the Eagles OTAs continue on Monday. So we'll get more on the Birds as they finish up their little three-set portion of the OTAs yesterday, Tuesday, and today. And, of course, Monday they'll be back. They have a couple more, and then the mini camps begin sometime there in mid-June, and we'll really hopefully see some more of Sam Bradford. Interested to see when you saw Sam, does he look like a guy who's ready to play, or does he still look like he has any lingering effects of the surgeries?
Yeah, he does not look ready yet. I mean, they basically said the knee is not ready for him to be out there, or there's any chance that somebody could hit it. I mean, these are non-contact drills basically, but if an offensive lineman falls or a defensive lineman's rushing the passer and he trips up and he loses his balance and that weight goes on Sam Bradford's knee, it's just not ready for that kind of thing yet. He can stand still. He can drop, take his drops, throw the ball. He can run, but he's not ready for football yet. Football is a violent game, and this is a twice-torn, situation here in his left ACL. So he doesn't look ready yet, and he kind of said that. Things are going well. He's supposed to try, throwing 7-on-7 drills next week. So we'll see a little bit more of him next week probably and how he throws the ball. We heard a lot about, Zach Ertz said that he's the hardest thrower that he's ever worked with, and that includes Andrew Luck, Michael Vick, and Nick Foles. So we'll look at see that for ourselves next week for the first time. But I think it'll be a little while, probably the beginning of training camp before we really see Sam Bradford, running football plays in a uniform with a helmet and doing everything full go.
All right, everybody. Phil Sheridan here from ESPN.com giving us a little insight on the Eagles OTAs. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, enjoyed it, Mike. Thank you.